Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the Apple Box Chronicles. My name is Peyton Buetow,
And I'm Adryon Thomas.
and you might be wondering who we are, or at least who this guy is, because for some of you, you might be coming from my other pages on social media, mainly TikTok, where I make movie-related content. This is a new podcast that we've started together. Why are we calling it the Apple Box Chronicles, Adryon, and who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Adryon Thomas. I I know Peyton through we used to work together at a movie theater, and we just figured out that we both loved movies a lot, and I think the best way for us to like kind of express our creativity is through talking about it on this podcast. And it took us a while to figure out what we wanted the podcast to be called. So we were thinking, and then we just thought, why don't we do something like just movie set related? And that's where the name Apple Box Chronicles comes from. So if you're not aware how things happen on movie sets, but there's this certain like crate box looking thing called an Apple Box where they use it for everything. They could use it for people to stand on. They could people could sit on it, whatnot. But we just like the idea of like sitting on a Apple Box looking at a movie being created and kind of just having that kind of view from inside the set. And that's kind of what we want for this podcast, to have kind of like an in onset view of how movies are made and kind of talk about the kind of ins and outs, the psychologies of what happens on set and things of that sort in terms of like the movies that we'll be talking about.
Yeah, our goal has kind of always aligned with trying to look at films through the perspective of the filmmakers, looking at filmmakers' intentions, and kind of showing how a little bit of research can give you such a vast insight into like how someone's career has developed and how a movie got made and why they made that movie at that time. And it's stuff that we find really interesting, and I think a lot of people kind of overlook it. So this podcast is sort of trying to shed light on even indie and studio films alike, just kind of the psychology behind like why they made the movie that way. And a lot of people ask what happened with this movie, and that's kind of what we look to uncover with this podcast. We are not actually on these sets,
Yeah.
obviously. We don't really have the firsthand experience, but we're just trying to show you how anybody at home can kind of, I guess, give a film the time of day to be like, okay, so filmmakers are not just stupid. They're not just going around making movies incompetently because they're dumb. There's a goal there, and even if it doesn't necessarily shine through in the final product and things get messy, you know, I think there's always something you can find out if you just look a little deeper into the specifics of, I guess, how everything was created,
Yeah.
good or bad. Um,
And so this is our first segment. We're calling it view findings. Basically, for this segment specifically, we're gonna go over mostly directors. We'll go over like their life, their earlier life before filming, doing their whole career in filmmaking. Then we'll talk about their individual films that they've had, and then at the very end, we'll do kind of a little thing where we'll look up on Letterboxd, see what they've been associated with, who they've been associated with, how that have changed their kind of trajectory in their careers and other people surrounding them, and how that can kind of showcase the the ideas, the themes, the psychology of how they go about making films. And I just think that's kind of cool.
it is really interesting. So today's first episode is on, if you can't tell by my shirt, it's a movie called Drop that just came out. This is on the director of that film, Christopher Landon. Now, this is a director that is not really a namesake or a household name. This is not somebody that people often talk about, but he's made quite a few popular films. And the reason we decided that this would be a cool first episode is because, one, it's kind of relevant. He has a new movie coming out. But two, this is kind of a perfect example of what we're going for here, where you can look at the career of a director who is not really known for their auteur stamp or their name per se. They're just kind of like a studio filmmaker that makes, operates in a certain genre. But you can still look at them and see the crew that they've worked with, how they've built their style, how they've, gotten these particular directing jobs, and like how each film differs and is similar to each other over the course of their career and how they've developed. It's really honestly been quite fascinating to look over his films and to be watching all of them, because this is not exactly a filmmaker I think people do deep dives on a lot. So hopefully you can learn something too, because we've kind of done a little bit of research, and I think some of the connections that we've discovered are very interesting, at least to us. So hopefully they can be interesting to you too. So, Adryon, who is Christopher Landon? What have you learned about Christopher Landon's early years?
So Christopher Landon's actually it's his background is very interesting. He is a nepo baby in terms because his family was kind of like a part of this like television mogul where it's they did Little House on the Prairie, and his father especially was a part of Highway to Heaven, and so he has family like uh, in the industry for years, and he was kind of introduced to that via family, and it's I find it fascinating because his father Michael Landon was very his 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 mark on the industry was very Republican Christian values, family based entertainment. And Christopher Landon is a gay man, and I'm sure that was a lot of kind of that was a big stake in his life because he, as we know, being gay while being a part of a very conservative family is kind of an outlier. And I think that has actually, you could see that in his career, like, especially starting off, how he's kind of used that as kind of like a rebellious thing, uh, taken away from his attachment to those early TV shows that his father was a part of. And we've done a bit of research. We saw that uh, at least his biological mother was not. She kind of denounced him for being gay, and his stepmom and it has confirmed that she and his father kind of assumed that he was gay. But I didn't really see that much about his father's perspective of the of his sexuality. But that I think that kind of led him down to a very interesting start of a career because he went to school for screenwriting and filmmaking. He did drop out though to write a film for Larry Clark. Those who don't know Larry Clark, he did Kids and Ken Park. They're very uh, they're kind of the like those outlier films that are very, I don't know how to explain it. They're very like Harmony Korine esque because those films were very also
Definitely.
written by Harmony Korine.
I've
So
seen that film Kids included on a lot of lists along with Gummo and stuff.
yeah,
So
they're like these really weird, highly depraved and intimate films that can touch on controversial topics.
And I think that there is something to be said about the fact that he's a gay man and he directs a lot of horror films, because horror is kind of known for being that genre where it's sort of I guess you could tap into some darker feelings. It's for people who kind of often feel outcasted gravitate towards that genre.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that he would kind of start off in such on the complete opposite spectrum of the type of subject matter that his father would be dealing with in television, because it's more progressive, left-leaning kind of just acceptance of the outlying people rather than the nuclear family Christian values kind of stuff going on. So his first writing credits was on Another Day in Paradise, which I haven't seen, but I being that it's directed by Larry Clark was probably uh, something very very different than what his lineage is used to. And then after that, I was did a bit of research, and it looked like his career wasn't doing too hot because of his orientation and where he was setting up to go. But I think he really hit it big whenever he started writing more spec scripts, especially Blood and Chocolate, and then Disturbia, which was a really big hit for DreamWorks.
I'm
And
not a fan of that movie, but
I don't.
I think it more has to.
I think it's just an okay movie. I haven't seen it in a few years, but I thought it was fine.
It's
It was a big hit back in the day though. Like a lot of teenagers really loved that movie.
Yeah, and that is kind of an early indicator of some of the stuff that he does, where obviously Disturbia is very much influenced by Rear Window by Alfred Hitchcock, and but it's given kind of this I guess teenage spin to it,
Yeah.
whereas Christopher Landon often makes films that are kind of like that. They're
Yeah.
blending genres, or in fact just blending films that already exist, like concepts that have already been tried and true, and putting them into a horror or thriller context, or just meshing them together. And this is something that he does all the time, and I think it is part of the reason why he's so successful, because a lot of these people, a lot of audiences will gravitate towards those concepts, those high concept movies. I mean, it's the same reason a director like M. Night Shyamalan can get so many detractors into the theater through these kind of intriguing high concepts. And then, Christopher Landon is doing the same thing. He's able to get people into the theater with a really fun premise
Yeah.
and mix that all together.
Yeah, I will get into it when we talk about kind of his a little later movies, but he does know how to pitch a movie. Like from the looks
Yeah.
of it, he knows how to pitch a movie. He knows how to make a movie very efficiently, with not as much money as a usual big studio would, and he gives a really good polished finished film that, like, whether or not it was a big studio movie or not, they look and feel like good, real good movies that have these really great concepts to it.
And I think that a lot of people, might not find, especially in the sort of cinephile community, like if you're really into movies, he might be a filmmaker where you're like, I mean, yeah, those are just kind of basic movies, just whatever.
But they do great at the box office.
Yeah, it's kind of this perfect, like, palatable, films that don't necessarily transcend, but that are just so efficient and, like I said, palatable to general audiences, that I feel like that's what's made him such a successful filmmaker.
Yeah.
So, anything else we want to talk about in terms of his history before we get into these films and go through his work chronologically, his directorial work?
I don't think so. I think his breakthrough really was being doing those spec strips that really launched him off into wanting him to direct, wanting himself to direct his own stuff.
Yes. So, the first film here that we're going to talk about, and this is honestly kind of an outlier in his filmography. A lot of directors have this for their first film. I am interested to explore what could have led to this being the first movie for him to make, but it's called Burning Palms. It's from 2010, and it is an anthology film of 5 stories that, is it 5? Yeah, 5 stories that take place in Los Angeles. and they are incredibly subversive and transgressive, and it sort of gives like a movie 43 vibe. That's what I said. Um,
I
what would you like to say about this one?
so I think I was thinking about this a little bit, and I think I understand uh, where this is coming from. Where, like I said earlier, he moved so far on the other spectrum of what his lineage was used to, that he kind of wanted to make something his own, something very transgressive, something very uh, different and weird, and that's something I think a lot of first time filmmakers want to do to kind of like uh, pop out and like kind of show off and be like, hey, I could do this crazy thing that nobody else is really doing right now. And I think for a few of those segments in the anthology, it's really like, wow, you really went there. Like, I don't know if you should have gone there, but you were trying to say something for sure. And it's I think it kind of helped him and kind of hurt him in sort of a reputation kind of thing. But it is an interesting little set of little films here. We're gonna go through each segment one by one because they are very different, and we have very different, not different, but very black and white opinions on like some of them.
Yeah, so these I would also like to say that this film actually has quite a few notable actors in it. Off the top of my head, I mean, it's got Rosamund Pike, it's got Zoe Saldana in it. There's a little bit of star power here
Yeah,
for it being his first film. I mean, he's been in the industry, so it makes sense. So the first one is called The Green-Eyed Monster. These all have names that are a little ambiguous, but basically, this first short film is about a engaged couple. Rosamund Pike plays the woman, and I forget the actor that plays the husband, but
yeah, he's like
he is a
in
known actor.
yeah, he's like in American Horror Stories.
Yeah, so this couple, there is the man's daughter is returning from school, I believe, and this is his fiance's first time meeting her, and she starts to notice that this father and daughter are very close and are behaving in very strange ways that are sometimes sexual in nature, and she tries to call them out on it and is rejected and then told she's being crazy, and she just kind of gets gaslit, and it's this journey of her feeling like she's going insane just watching this stuff happen that's not normal, but being told that it's like okay anyway.
Yeah,
And it goes to some very dark places.
yeah. Well, I don't think we should spoil.
I'm not gonna spoil
Yeah,
it, but it is that's the premise.
yeah.
And
That was a fine one. The premise was interesting, and it was like, oh, let's see where this goes. I think it doesn't land
we
great, but it's an interesting first little segment.
when we watched this together, we were like, what the fuck, Christopher Landon? I didn't know you had this in you. Like, what are you doing? But this one is pretty entertaining.
Yeah,
It's pretty entertaining. It's fucked up. I mean, a lot of these are, but this one is fucked up in a way where you're like, I can get on board with this premise. This is kind of funny. Um,
then the second one, I we both agree is the best one.
by far.
The little piggy. Um, man, I don't know how to talk about this without like giving it away, but basically, it's one of those segments where the character becomes paranoid over a certain uh thing that they perceive is happening to them, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it is so funny and so so weird, and it's I honestly I love that segment because it's really it's really hitting a lot of like great themes about not like not knowing if your significant other really likes you for the way that you are, and so you try to do things to make them happy, but by doing that you don't you're yourself are not happy about it, and
You
then you
kind
have
of
this kind of guilt about it.
Yeah, it's kind of feeling a feeling of like impurity, like
Yeah,
feeling like you've kind of tarnished yourself a little bit, and it's just a descent into this insane thing that this insane paranoia.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, we shouldn't give away actually what it is, but if you're gonna watch any of these, please watch this one. I'm trying, even if you're watching just this movie just for this and just skip to this one and watch it, I'd say that's worth it. This is honestly just such a fun short film
Yeah.
that I really thoroughly enjoyed. The next one is called Buyer's Remorse. So this one is about a gay couple that adopts an African child, and then she's completely mute. She like doesn't speak. They don't know what's wrong with her. They don't know how to really connect with her, and they kind of start mistreating her as a result because they don't know what to do with her, and they behave very selfishly, or at least one of them does.
Yeah.
But, and there is a bit of a commentary that you pointed out that this could be about. Otherwise, it's mildly entertaining, but I could take it or leave it. But what do you think about it?
I I think it's interesting on a like an idea or theme kind of way, because I feel like it's kind of ironic because Christopher Landon is gay, and I feel like the it kind of, it almost feels homophobic the way they they make these characters out to be. But I don't think it's because they're gay. I think it's because they're from LA. I think it's a negative connotation of people, of rich couples in LA, and how they feel like they could just pay for anything that they want because it's exotic, and then when they don't know how to actually care for that thing, they just kind of throw to the wolves. And that's a very rich person LA person thing to do.
I think this is, yeah, it's called Burning Palms, or in reference to palm trees, and it's all LA, and I think it basically is just like LA people are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the theme of the whole
Yeah.
movie. Um
But yeah, it was a fine. It was like middling. I wasn't a huge fan of like kind of the representation of the guys in there, but I understand what he was trying to say about that certain situation.
Definitely. Next one is called Kangaroo Court. This follows a group of spoiled rich children, and I believe it's their sister or something. There's an older woman.
It's like a babysitter. It's
She's-
by shoot, what's her name?
Oh man.
Lake Bell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they have a maid,
Yeah,
a
just
housekeeper.
yeah.
And this woman has an, I guess I'll just say, an object that's very dear to her that gets stolen, and then the kids take it upon themselves to kind of form this fake court to try and put people on trial and see who took it.
Yeah.
And then it ends up kind of revealing some things from people's past. Basically, this one, it's a little weird because it kind of has these spoiled kids who mistreat this housekeeper. They're so mean to her, and you hate them, and then it kind of tries to turn it around on you at a certain point. So I don't really understand the goal of this one.
Yeah, it's just trying to be subversive for the usual like courtroom drama things where it's like, you don't expect it to be this person, but it ends up being that person. It's like it's not good. It's one of the worst segments on here.
But it's not the worst.
It's also just boring. Like, I'm trying to think back on it, and like I'm just like, I don't remember like a lot of the details of it. It's just not. It's not good. It's not a good one.
Yeah.
The last segment though is pretty bad, I think. Just overall, not in terms of I think the acting's fine, but like subject matter wise, this is pre Me Too, right? 2010.
I don't know. Maybe
It might be pre. I don't remember the year that Me Too happened, but it's. Let's just say that there's some.
Well, first of all, it's called Maneater,
Yeah.
and it follows a woman played by Zoe Saldana who is sexually assaulted,
Yeah.
and then the assailant leaves his wallet in her apartment,
Yeah.
and so she's able to essentially track him down, find out who he is, and all this stuff, and it basically doesn't really go the way you might expect it to go
Yeah.
in terms of how she engages with her assailant. So it's honestly just it's one of those things that again just feels offensive for the sake of it. Like it's
Yeah,
just trying to surprise you.
it's provocative for the sake of being provocative in a time where that was just fine. I guess you could just do that kind of stuff, and people weren't as offended. For instance, if that were to come out today, I think there would be some kind of uproar.
And
Like
I
some
mean,
people would be
we
like
are
really
watching it,
mad.
and you and me are watching it in 2025. I don't know if people in 2010 responded well to this one, but also like this segment in particular, it expects you to feel a certain way towards its characters, and I just don't feel like it's earned in a way that where the audience is actually going to be on board with
Yeah.
what the movie's trying to do. So that's Burning Palms,
Yeah,
really, as a
it's
whole.
I think overall this was just kind of him making a statement of being like I'm I'm doing my own thing. I'm trying to be very different. Um and I'm trying to do something that people don't really see or really talk about a lot, which is all these kind of weird taboo subject matter kind of stuff. And
Also,
he what?
I was going to say also, we should probably mention that the structure of this film is a little interesting because it portrays all these different stories as like comic strips.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah.
The CGI, well, the little like
Yeah, there's like an animated comic
animated.
book that opens and it zooms in on it, and it like it's so that's a
The,
little thing.
there's
That's kind of the style of it.
yeah, that's like the way it's kind of keeping them all like together, like somehow tying all of them together. But I think that's just a kind of a lame way of tying all of them together. They're not like intersecting each other or anything. It's just like different stories in LA.
Yeah,
But I mean, overall, I think it was basically just kind of like a proof of concept, kind of. This is what I can do for his directing debut. And unlike his later films, these, like we've said, these have known actors in them, and I think that was very purposeful so that uh, he could kind of get an audience for this movie. Whereas in his later films, he'll kind of utilize the marketing of their stories and uh, their high concepts rather than star power to have them made and kind of market them, because he doesn't use a lot of big name stars in his movies. I think that's for a budgeting reason, but also it kind of frees you up from the always having to work with divas on set or people that try to take over as big name actors, and you get to save a bit of money. So, and I think that's why he's also a really good, efficient director that Jason Blum loves to produce for.
yeah. Um, so his next film is his first, outright horror movie.
And we forgot to mention this earlier on, but during his time as a writer, he wrote all of the, except for the first one, he wrote all of the Paranormal Activity movies. Uh, and this is the fifth one.
This is the fifth
This is
one.
the fifth one, so this is kind of like his turn in directing one of them.
Yeah, so he wrote 2, 3, 4, and he wrote the one. I think he co-wrote the one in 2021 as
Yeah.
well. But this is the fifth one. This one he got to direct. Paranormal Activity, the marked ones from 2014. This film, I think, is actually pretty good. I remember watching this when it came out, and I was just kind of watching the Paranormal Activity movies because they were trendy and popular. I like 2 and 3, and the first one. I didn't like 4, and I didn't remember liking this one. But revisiting it, I think it does have some merit to it in terms of it being kind of a coming of age movie in a way. It has a cultural aspect to it because the characters are Mexican, and you have this one character who he is Mexican, but he doesn't speak like very good Spanish. Like he's just not learned in Spanish, and he mispronounces the name Marisol, which is my girlfriend's name, and I think that's so funny because that literally everyone that can't speak Spanish will pronounce it the way he says it in the movie. So I think it's perfect,
Yeah,
and
Marisol.
it pisses her off when people do that, but she just have to accept it because there's just no teaching people.
Yeah.
My family can't even say her name right, but that's a personal anecdote. But this movie it's kind of a post high school movie. This guy and his friends graduate high school, and then their neighbor starts looking like she's involved in some strange witchcraft-esque stuff, and then it kind of latches on to our main character, and at first it seems great, but then of course it's a paranormal activity movie, so the ghost starts doing bad things. But basically, I think this could be seen as some kind of metaphor for graduating high school, and the moment where you kind of feel like the world is so open and the opportunities are so vast now that you're not tied down to high school. But then that's when you realize like all the things that have been passed down to you, hereditarily. uh is that a word? I don't know.
Hereditarily, I don't think so. But
Genetically,
yeah,
I don't know. Through familial ties,
yeah,
the things that have been passed down to you. And I think this is sort of a metaphor for that in a way. And so I could see a lot of people really connecting to and loving this movie. I think it's just fine, but it's a pretty solid entry into the franchise, all things considered.
yeah. I think you definitely like it more than I did. I didn't hate it or anything. I thought it was just fine. It just reminded me a lot of like Chronicle, which came out
Yeah.
like what 2 years or some or around that time. Uh, and I think it was kind of following that trend of found footage. Someone gets like crazy powers or they discover some crazy stuff, and it just gets worse and worse. And I think that's when we could start to see a bit of his auteurism coming in with this movie, because he likes to do this thing, which I mean, a lot of films do this, but he kind of starts off small, and then he just like throughout the movie, like things just get worse and worse and worse, and like the action ramps up near the end. I think it's very similar to like someone like Robert Zemeckis with like Back to the Future, that kind of way of screenwriting where you, something happens, and then you're figuring out ways to deal with it, and then by doing that it just makes it worse and worse, and like every time you try to fix it, it just get worse until the very climax of the movie. And I think that Christopher Landon does that with basically all of his movies from this point on. And I just find that really fun. I just like that in movies where characters can't seem to get a break at all ever. And I just like that about his movies. That's something we'll definitely talk about as we go along. But yeah, Paranormal Activity Mark One's pretty good. I think it's fine. It's a good little. I think it's a good little showcase of him being like an actual, like, instead of just doing these like an anthology, like a singular film with a singular story and characters. I think he pulls it off pretty good.
Yeah, it's nice tight movie under 90 minutes, and he has a lot of history with the franchise. It makes sense that he got to direct one of these. I think it is one of the better ones, and it's one of the better films he's made, in my opinion. But yeah, pretty solid film. His next movie is the very next year, and we kind of had a moment where we realized this movie's a decade old because it's from 2015, and that kind of fucked us up. But Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse is what it's called. Stars Ty Sheridan. It stars,
There's
I forget their names, but the other main boy in this is in the movie Love, Simon as well. Um, and basically, this is a film about, again, high schoolers that are still Boy Scouts. And
Well, I just want to say one thing real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, go ahead.
They don't say Boy Scouts. They just say Scouts throughout the whole thing because I don't think they can't associate with the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or whatever they call it now. So it's just Scouts, which I think is just kind of funny because there is no just like Scouts. You're either a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. I think Boy Scouts have, I don't remember, but I think there was a thing where they were starting to include girls in them. But I just find it funny that he he probably didn't have the rights to say Boy Scouts, so they just say Scouts the entire time. And I used to be a Boy Scout, so I could just like kind of pick out everything that they're just like kind of not getting right. But I don't know. I just wanted to say that they're not actually Boy Scouts in this movie.
So yes, I think that's important to point out.
I don't
So
think it's that important.
so
I just wanted to point it out.
so the premise of this film is basically there's three Boy Scouts or Scouts,
Yeah.
and two of them don't really want to be a scout anymore. They feel they're too old. One of them is like still really into it, and they kind of make fun of him for it. So they essentially are doing zombie super bad in this movie, where basically these two scouts are trying to get to this party and impress these girls that they like, and they need there's even a point where they need to buy alcohol, and that's a huge thing in super bad. But basically, yeah, there is that sort of dynamic. Like the two main kids are kind of like Michael Cera and Jonah Hill in Superbad, and the third one is a little bit, he's nerdier. He's kind of like McLovin from Superbad. So I think it kind of wears its influences on its sleeve from movies like Zombieland or Superbad. This is what I like to call the baby's first R-rated movie, because it is rated R. It has nudity, it has swearing, it has some gore, but it's for basically 15-year-olds to watch, because that's who we're following. They're gonna, I guess, identify with that, and they're going to find this movie, I think, the more entertaining than fully grown adults will. So that's, I think, the audience for this.
Yeah.
And this is also like the beginning of that, really the true beginning of that thing we'll see Christopher Landon do a lot in his most successful films, which is just combining these concepts together. So here we have zombies and the kind of teen raunchy comedy like Superbad. But I think this movie's fine. I don't really think it excels in any particular area. It's entertaining while it's on, but I do think it's kind of forgettable when you compare it to some of its counterparts that do things a little differently. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think this came out in kind of that. It's like after the peak of like the zombie thing that was happening back then, where everybody was obsessed with zombies and zombie apocalypse and all that stuff. And this is kind of, I felt like in the back end of that, whereas like people just wasn't really into it as much. And it's a fine movie. Like I think I liked it a little bit more than you did. I thought it was funny in a lot of sequences, and it is like has that raunchy, immature vibe to it, which I like every once in a while. But it's just a fine movie. It's just I think, like we said, he's very good at blending two known ideas or stories or premises and kind of like putting them together to make another type of movie. And this was just him being like, hey, what if Zombieland and Superbad were like a singular film, and what would we see in that? And I think he pulls it off. Like, whether or not you like it or not, I think he pulls it off with what he was trying to do.
Yeah, he does pull it off. He he makes a fun little film out of it, for sure. I just I don't really see myself ever wanting to revisit this one.
I can see myself like putting it on in the background, like just if
maybe.
I just,
it's just kind of cliche.
Yeah.
That's really it's honestly its biggest sin. There's nothing really wrong with it per se.
But yeah, I thought it was fine.
Yeah. But it does pave the way for him to really make some fun stuff out of these combinations of tones and concepts. And one that we see that in is Happy Death Day from 2017. This is arguably his most popular film. I remember seeing trailers for this constantly. I never saw it in theaters. There's actually only one Christopher Landon movie I've seen in theaters, and it's his newest one. But Happy Death Day is essentially Groundhog Day combined with a slasher comedy like Scream.
Yeah.
It takes place on a college campus. And this is really where I think he gets to flex his efficiency as a filmmaker. Because with this concept, we talked about this while watching it.
Yeah, I kind of clocked it. I was like, this is how you make a very cheap and efficient movie without without showcasing it. Because when you're making a film where the same day happens over and over and over again, it makes it real easy as a director to just film one set over and over again just through the different days.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of cut down your schedule like by a lot when you just film the same scene over and over again but with different reactions and different like takes to make those scenes in different areas work. And I think that's just kind of brilliant, and I think that's why he's so good at being such an efficient director as well as being an effective director. Like this, like it works, and
Yeah.
that's why this movie, for so low of a budget, can work and make its money back really easily.
Absolutely. You get a lot of coverage that way.
Yeah.
And this kind of does his thing as well, where the climax of the film happens in like the very last minute. Like this is something we see him do a lot, where like you said, it's very Zemeckis-y and it tightens the situation and it builds the tension. It gets worse and worse and worse until it peaks at the very end. He does not have a lot of like runtime after like the main situation is resolved. There's not really a lot of like resolution. He kind of weaves that in pretty well to make the movie always kind of action packed and entertaining.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the great things about this kind of part of his career, where he has very little fat in his films. Like I think everything that he does in his movies like come back around. Like there's no like unnecessary scenes or like moments. I feel like they're pretty tight. I also want to say, I just kind of want to cut this movie and his next movie, which is the sequel, Happy Death Day to You, together, because I feel like, and I think he has kind of mentioned this, that he kind of had the concept for the two movies like together, because when we go into Happy Death Day to You, it gets right off from the first movie, and it expands the lore and the like how this is happening to such a different like feel. Like it goes into like sci-fi rather than in the first movie. It almost felt maybe supernatural, but it kind of transitions into a completely different realm of what we thought we were seeing in the first movie, and I thought that's really cool. I think that's where his upbringing from TV comes in, because it feels like he's a showrunner of a TV show and he's trying to put in new things to make it more exciting and not boring, and we're not seeing the same exact thing that the first movie did. There is like obviously they have the same general concept of like restarting the day over and over again, but he expands it out to an interesting point. I think he does kind of drop it like near the end of the movie, but then again, it kind of just dropped that they are doing the third movie, and I think I could see where the third movie's going.
And I think that this film, or both of these, well, first of all, let's talk about what these movies are actually about, in
Yeah.
case nobody's seen these, which I feel like a lot of people have seen these, if any of them. Um, this is essentially Groundhog Day mixed with a slasher, like I said. It's a movie about a girl who wakes up in this boy's bedroom. She was super drunk the night before, and she ended up in this other guy's dorm room, who she doesn't really know too well. And then she finds herself stuck in a time loop, and towards the end of each day, she gets murdered by a killer in a baby mask, and she can't figure out who it is. So she has infinite tries to try to figure out who's doing it to her, because the day just resets when she dies. And then the second movie is basically that kind of happening again to someone else, and then that kicks into why the time loop is happening in the first place,
Yeah.
what causes it, and we get more of like a Back to the Future-esque tone in this one. And I like you said, him being a showrunner kind of comes, or being having a background in TV kind of comes into this, like he is a showrunner, where he is able to place these characters into different tones and contexts and still make them feel consistent.
Yeah.
And he makes like a kind of a fun ensemble movie out of the second one, whereas the first one mainly focused on our central character named Tree. Another thing he does a lot is he has woman leads in a few of these films.
I
Starting
think
here.
his most popular films are led by women, blonde-haired women,
Yeah,
for some reason.
like the Hitchcock blonde
Yeah.
almost. But yeah, this one is really fun. Both of them are really entertaining. We watch these right back to back, and I feel like that's a fun double feature,
Yeah.
because it does kind of take you into a different tone and expands the world in the second one, but it feels like you picked up right where you
Immediately,
left
yeah.
off. It's like watching. There is kind of a difference in, I guess, color grading and the lens that they're using, maybe like between the two films. I mean, it's 2 years apart, but when you watch them back to back, it's almost like you're watching the first season of a show, and then the second season of a
Yeah.
show starts right where the first one left off. So, really fun experience. And also, the second one deals with the multiverse, and this was kind of right on the cusp of it becoming popular.
Yeah.
So he had his finger on the pulse with that one.
Yeah. And I I do think these are like his. I'm not gonna say the peak of his career, because he has a career like he's still
I
making
think we are
movies.
in almost the peak of his
Yeah.
career still.
But like this is really like his mark in saying like I'm a I'm a director that can like actually like make really good kind of that populist film where everybody likes the characters, the humor is like at the right tone, the horror kind of slasher stuff is at the right tone. It's not. He's really good at just like doing that balancing act on both the creative aspect and a fiscal aspect. So like the money is. I think he's just really good at making very small but efficient movies.
Absolutely. And movies that you can put on at slumber parties and get a little scared too and laugh a little bit. I mean, that's kind of, I think, his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Is just high concept films that like young adults to teens are mostly going to want to watch, but I think they're enjoyable to just about anybody.
Yeah.
And same thing with the next film, which is Freaky. This is another popular one, released in 2020. This is Freaky Friday the 13th. It's like Friday the 13th, but I think Christopher Landon was just thinking about that. He was like, Friday the 13th is on a Friday, but so is Freaky Friday. What if they went together? And this is kind of riding the wave of the Happy Death Day popularity, because it's very similar in tone.
Yeah.
Has kind of a core group of characters you follow. It is in high school instead of college, but it is kind of more appealing to, I think, the young adult audience. And I think even more mature audiences can enjoy this one more than something like Scout's Guide.
Yeah.
Because it has just a little more emotion to it, and some genuinely fucking hilarious stuff with Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
He really is the best part of this movie.
Yeah, I think with Freaky, after the first two Happy Death Day movies, he was able to get like bigger name stars like Vince Vaughn and what's the main girl's
Catherine Newton.
Catherine Newton, who's just starting off in her career, and like really utilize them well. And I do also like that the Freaky Friday the 13th where he stylistically he mimics like the the like Friday the 13th type of gore where you won't see in Happy Death Day. Happy Death Day is like less gory because I think it's more like Scream, which is like less of a
It's more
gory.
humorous when she dies in Happy Death Day. It's instant. It's like it
Yeah.
resets the day.
Like it's more animated, like when she wakes up after being zapped and her hair is like all frizzy and whatnot. Whereas in Freaky, it's more, Jason Voorhees like brutal kind of stuff
you have
going on.
Vince Vaughn playing a serial killer called the Butcher, which is also like one of my favorite movies. Trap. Also has a butcher character, but anyway, serial killer called the Butcher, and basically he swaps bodies with this awkward kind of shy high school girl played by Catherine Newton. And so you have a serial killer who's able to take advantage of the fact that he's in a high school girl's body, but he's also weaker because of that, physically. But also most of his victims are teenagers and teenage girls, and so he's able to kind of get closer to the people he enjoys killing. And then she is stuck in this guy's body who's this big kind of more muscular
Yeah.
like serial killer guy, and everybody is looking for him and he's wanted.
Yeah.
So she has to kind of navigate that while trying to get her body back, but nobody really wants to see her or talk to her, and nobody fucking believes her, because she looks like the serial killer.
I do think this is actually his best like he utilizes so many ideas of like the body swapping as well as the slasher, as well as like the whole high school thing where it's like the shy girl, she needs to find ways to like open up and be more herself and more like have more confidence in herself, and to do that she has to be a serial killer to see herself actually be like, oh, I could actually be hot. I could actually like grab people's attention
Even as a serial killer.
Yeah. it's like it's I think it's really funny how they just kind of play with that concept. Like she has like a crush and she has to talk to her crush as Vince Vaughn, and they're just like they're like crushing over each other, and her crush in the movie just doesn't care that she's a dude, a 40-year-old killing man. And the relationship between the two is just really funny to me because it's like you have this little like teenage boy like kind of flirting up this older man.
And also Vince Vaughn is like, he's yassified in this shit. Like,
he's really funny in it.
He's acting his ass off.
I do want to see Vince Vaughn in more things. He's just not in a lot of things, and I think that's really cool of Christopher Landon to kind of give him that opportunity to come back into the fold.
And he kills it, literally.
Yeah.
He's so good.
I think the only thing about this movie that I could have been better is just a little bit of the pacing in the third act.
Yeah.
I think the third act kind of slows down and then hypes back up real fast. I think there could have been a bit of smoothing around there, but it's not a big thing. I do really like Freaky. It might be my second favorite of his films.
Freaky is pretty good, and it again does that thing where it's like, okay, we're gonna solve the problem, but then the problem's actually not completely solved, and then it's like all action until the very last second. So very fun movie. Recommended if you haven't seen it. And then there, unfortunately, we have to talk about what we both I think believe is his worst film. We Have a Ghost from 2023. This is a movie that's on Netflix, and it follows a family who just moved into this very old house, and of course the house is haunted. But the ghost is pretty chill. He can't speak. He's played by David Harbour, and this young boy who kind of feels like an outcast in his family. He forms a connection, a bond with this ghost, and is trying to help him uncover the mystery of who he is and how he died. Because the ghost has no memory, but he also can't speak. So they have to figure out what happened to him. And this one's just kind of a mess of genres, tones. It has a commentary on internet fame. It's a ghost movie, but then it's also becomes kind of a thriller slasher movie at times, and then it's an adventure movie. It's also like a family drama. I would like to mention this movie has David Harbour. It has Anthony Mackie. That's another big name in it. I'm not familiar with the actors who play the two young boys in the house. The actress who plays the mom in this film, Erica Ash, did pass away from breast cancer last year, so rest in peace to her. Just a shout out. But yeah, it's not really balanced in terms
Yeah.
of premise and character. It's too much premise.
I think that's yeah. I mean, when you were explaining it, I was like that. If they were to do it right, that kind of probably would have been a really cool movie where you're trying to help out this ghost where you can't really communicate with it. But yeah, they just throw a lot at you. They like Anthony Mackie's character, the father. He's kind of, in a way, he's narcissistic. He wants to get like famous, based just using this ghost to like get famous. And the son's like, he's just my friend. I just want to help him out. But there's also this whole backstory about who he actually is. Like his name's Ernest, but his name's actually not Ernest because he's wearing someone else's shirt that says Ernest. It's a whole thing that just I feel like there was too much going on and not enough going on. I think David Harbour was extremely miscast.
I think what you mean to say is that there's too much going on, but not a lot happening. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
And David Harbour, yeah, he was apparently the first choice, but he was also apparently intimidated by the role.
Yeah,
because he didn't speak, and I just feel like David Harbour doesn't really have. I mean, no offense, I just feel like they could have cast a much more expressive
yeah.
actor to play this character, because I didn't really have an easy time latching onto him in the same way that the young boy did.
He was very goofy in this movie. Like
Yeah.
when he was trying to be scary, I was like, nobody would be scared of that. You
Well,
look goofy as
that's
hell.
the point
Yeah.
of the character, but also I feel like there's an earnest, no pun intended, an earnestness to the character
Yeah.
that didn't quite capture in that.
Yeah.
But this is an adaptation of a short story, actually, and so I do wonder how much more focused the short story is compared to the film, and how what was added narratively, adapting this into a 2-hour film
I,
from a short story.
it's also curious as to why Christopher Landon would even want to do this movie, because he already did Paranormal Activity marked ones, which kind of have a ghost in it, and he kind of uses a little bit of the same concept in this movie, where like you have this young guy who's kind of struggling, whatever, and then the ghost kind of helps him out in certain situations, like in Paranormal Activity, when he first finds out that he has like this force, this ghost thing happening, where he's trying to fall off things, and the ghost will just catch him, and like when he tries to fight off the guys in the street, and the ghost just like tosses them around. A very similar thing happens in this movie, where like I think he's fighting off someone. Like
I think he's just like roughhousing,
yeah,
or something,
and
just dude flies,
yeah,
across the room, or
so
something gets disrupted.
He's using similar like ideas in this movie, but I don't know why he would want to make this movie in particular, because this kind of seems out of his like usual wheelhouse for what he would want to do. Also, I think this is just another indicator that he works better with actors that aren't huge. because I could probably see a lot of interference um, with probably David Harbour, maybe Anthony Mackie. I don't think Anthony Mackie
Maybe
doesn't seem
Jennifer
like
Coolidge. She's in this one.
she's in it as well. But and this movie also went right under everybody. Like nobody was talking
I'd
about it. There
never
was
heard of
no
this.
promotion for this movie. I did not hear about this movie until we wanted to do this podcast. And it makes sense because it's a whatever movie. And because it's so whatever, it makes it even worse because it's just like it, I don't know. That's Netflix for you guys. They just pick up the lowest of low crap and they'll just put it out there. They don't care if they market it or not. As long as it's out there, some people will probably see it. Who knows?
Damn. I'm getting a little hard on it. Okay. Well, good thing is, the next film we're going to talk about is believed by both of us to be his best film. It's not often you make your worst film and then your best film.
Yeah.
But he did it. And it's called Drop. It just came out. At the time of this releasing, it probably just released in the last week or two.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting one. So the premise follows a widowed mother named Violet. She is trying to get back out there into the dating scene, but she has a lot of anxiety about it. And so she goes on her first date with this guy that she's been talking with online for a few months. And then while she's on the date, she gets these mysterious airdrops on her phone that kind of start off goofy and then get a little bit more threatening and then, start blackmailing her into doing things she doesn't want to do. And it's kind of ruining her date as well. So it's this great commentary, I think, on definitely about survivors of domestic abuse and how that kind of lingers and follows you as you try to form connections with new people. I think that's, I guess, the commentary here. There's also a little bit of social media technology stuff going on, similar to even We Have a Ghost, which also tapped into that in one of its many different excursions. But this is just such a tight, focused, like Hitchcockian thriller that's mostly one location. And this is his first time directing something that he didn't write.
Yeah.
And I think that this really shines in terms of his direction and the style that he's putting into it. This feels visually so different from his other films. It just has such a flair to it. It's necessary because you do have a lot of on-screen text from all these different drop messages she's getting, but it's implemented in such a stylish and fun way. What did you think of this one?
Oh, I loved it. It's like we both talked about it and we both agree this is by far his best movie. It's really good, actually. It's a really good movie. It's really tight. The comedy hits, the suspense hits. I think people will love it. I think like basic audiences will dig this movie a lot if they go to see it.
I hope they do. I want it to be successful really bad. Also, I won a t-shirt at the screening. If you're watching the recorded version of the podcast, you can see it. I'm super excited about that.
It's I think it's really good. There's the two main actors aren't huge right now. I think the girl's mostly known for TV.
I think she was in a season of The White Lotus.
Yeah.
And then the man in the movie, Brandon Sklenar.
Yeah.
He is. I haven't seen him in a whole lot, but his last two films, he's played a character who is like the guy that this woman connects with.
He's the green flag guy.
The green flag guy when a woman has been dealing with a red flag guy.
Yeah.
And she goes back to him and he's just like the nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
And like he's so great. And honestly, I would see more with him in it playing that sort of role because he's great at it. He's just got this like soothing kind of warm feeling to him. I feel safe watching him. Just watching him, I feel so safe in the theater. I think he's just great. Like just so low key great.
Yeah, no, like
flashy.
Yeah, I do like him as that type of character. I kind of want to see him do a bit a different like
Subvert it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But as for Drop, I think he was great in it. I think all the characters are great. There's like a waiter character, so
Awesome.
funny.
That's another thing. So I'm a waiter. Adryon has experience being a waiter, and the relatability for when this guy has to deal with all the chaos of this date that's ensuing because of what's going on with Violet's character. Like, just the way that he responds to everything is so funny and so relatable if you work in the food service industry. There's also a bartender. There's a little bit of that with her as well. And it kind of shows how bartenders get a little bit more like intimate and concerned with their customers. Like, they form bonds, they have regulars, and the waiter, it's like his first day, so he's like having the worst first day ever, and it kind of mirrors how she's having the worst first date ever.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, all these things going wrong when they should be going right. In any other scenario, they would be going perfectly. So
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
I liked the movie a lot. I did say that obviously there's a reveal in the movie of who the antagonist is. I wasn't a huge fan of it because I thought it was predictable, but when they do the reveal, I think the antagonist, the actual actor, really good. I loved the way he portrayed it. But other than that, I thought it was really good. You didn't love the kind of how much of a climax there was.
So I thought it was a very tight thriller for the most part. The only issue I really had with the movie, yeah, was that it kind of leans into being an action set piece at the end, and I feel like it didn't have to go that crazy, but it did. And I don't hate it. It's just kind of a like it just kind of gets a little too over the top for my taste compared to the rest of the movie.
I don't know. I kind of loved it. I mean, for this type of movie, I feel like it needs to have that kind of climax, because if it doesn't, you're kind of making the movie a bit more. You're kind of like implying that the movie's more serious than it is. But then it is like it has some serious themes in it for sure. But I think he's making this for an audience that want that kind of ending.
Yeah, a little bit of an adrenaline rush
Yeah.
At the end. And, I think on a second watch I could come around on it, for sure. But as of right now, that was the only thing that kind of felt off to me. But it is a thriller with generally a pretty out there concept. Like, it's a fun concept.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, you're like, is that really the most efficient way for the antagonist to accomplish the goal that they have in the movie? It's like, maybe not, but it's so fun and it's topical. Yeah. And it works for what it is. And the movie takes itself sincerely. It's not interested in being ironic about the premise. It knows that, there's kind of an inside conversation between the movie and the audience of like, yeah, this is ridiculous, but we're gonna take it sincerely and play it straight. And I feel like the movie has a little bit of fun in the last act that didn't quite land for me on the first viewing, but maybe on the second viewing I'll come around.
I think that is something I do like about Christopher Landon, is the fact that his movies are very populous. They're very very high concept kind of stuff, but there's a sincerity to most of his films. Like, for instance, this one, there's definitely there's a scene where they both get really deep into like her past, and it's like and it's played very well. It's played very seriously, very nuanced and intimate. There, even in the Happy Death Day movies, there's this whole thing about grieving and trying to be a better person, though life cannot always go the way you want it to go, and there's ways that you could change your life to make yourself feel better. And they really get into like the whole like her grieving over someone, and I was like, oh, that's really good. You don't see that in a lot of movies of this kind of nature. And even in Freaky, there's that whole idea of like the main character is kind of shy. She doesn't she feels nerdy and like unappreciated by the people, even the teachers, are so mean to her.
Yeah.
But through being in someone else's body, she could really see that she could be more. There's more to her than she thinks.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that going on in a lot of his films, and I like that. It's very it's almost it's kind of counteracting this kind of ironic sense of humor that you'll see in like the bigger movies like Deadpool or
Yeah, absolutely. And
those
that's becoming so fucking annoying. So I'm glad that there's a director like Christopher Landon out there that's making stuff with its heart in the right place.
yeah.
Maybe not Burning Palms, but we've
Yeah.
come a long way.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think Drop is great. I mean, I also dropped tears while watching it. Like you were saying,
I did cry too.
very emotional sequence. And I mean, like, anecdotally, there was some stuff in there that really connected with me. So it was really just such a blast watching that. I can't wait to see it again. I think I'm actually gonna go again tonight.
Yeah, we should also mention that this is the movie he did right after not finding out, but not being able to do the seventh Scream movie, which he was supposed to direct the seventh Scream movie. I don't think there's been any they haven't announced any reason why he left, except to say that he felt like he just couldn't do it. But I mean, I think the quote was that it was a dream job for him that became a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably, this is just an assumption, but it's probably the political climate of what has happened with
I mean,
Melissa
Barrera, Jenna Ortega left Scream. It's a whole thing. That movie, it's not looking too clean for that movie.
Yeah.
But
he does hope for the best, and I hope for the best for Scream 7, because that's going to be Kevin Williamson's first directing of his Scream movies. Like he's the writer of the first few Scream movies, and for him to come in and direct, I'm interested to see that. But I'm actually kind of disappointed that Christopher Landon is not the director, especially after seeing Drop, where you could see that he is definitely someone with an eye for directing, and he doesn't always have to be the writer or co-writer of his films to showcase that he has a style, he has a vision, and he could pull it off great.
And I think I would love to see him make a Scream movie eventually, if that does happen. But he did say, I saw in an interview yesterday, he did say that, Kevin was meant to make that movie, and he was meant to make Drop. And it's great that he's at peace with that, and I think he made a fantastic film regardless. So I'm happy with it.
And they also announced that there is going to be a Happy Death Day 3, which I'm happy about, because I do feel like there's more that they could explore that they kind of hinted at in the second Happy Death Day movie, but they didn't go far enough. And I think they'll go farther in this third one, which will, I think, hopefully, if I'm thinking what's going to happen in it, it's going to happen. I think that's going to be fun.
And he does, he has said that he has had the idea in mind since making the second one for the third one, and that it was always supposed to be 3 films. So it's not, cashing in. It's like, this is an actual idea that he has for the third movie, and that I think is irrelevant to, I guess, the success of the second movie.
Yeah.
So it's exciting stuff, but that's his filmography.
That's his film. Do you want to say, like, your ranking?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. So I guess we'll go worst to best, because that's more fun.
Yeah.
So obviously my least favorite's going to be We Have a Ghost. My second least favorite, and before we started recording, I thought it was Scout's Guide, and we kind of bounced that idea around, and then you convinced me that Burning Palms belongs below that, and I think it actually does, because thinking about it, I was high on the euphoria of that second short film, but the other stuff just drags it down so much. So while Scout's Guide is a fine movie, I don't really think there's anything fantastic about it. It's just forgettable to me. I think they're pretty. Yeah, there was nothing like the feeling I got watching that second short in Burning Palms was way better than anything in Scout's Guide, but ultimately Scout's Guide is a more well-rounded movie.
Yeah.
So it goes Burning Palms, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, then probably Happy Death Day 2, which I still like, and then Freaky, and then Happy Death Day 1, which I think is better than the second one, obviously. And then uh, the
Paranormal?
Paranormal Activity would be my second favorite, and that's just because I feel like it's an outlier in his filmography due to the found footage medium and like what he's doing with that. I think it's cool that he got to direct a Paranormal Activity movie. He seems familiar with the franchise and really cares about it. And like I said, there's some themes to it that I really appreciate, even though it's not entirely my thing. I think it's really one of the more entertaining entries in that series. So I would say Paranormal Activity is number two, and then Drop. There's a considerable margin, but Drop would be my favorite for sure.
Yeah. Mine is a bit different. Not too different, but it's a bit different. Again, yeah, the last one is we have a ghost, which I'm not. It's not a garbage film. Like it's just not there. It's not something I feel like Christopher Landon needs to direct, needs to put out.
Yeah,
I think he has better avenues of making movies that are more of his style, and that just wasn't it. Um, After that, Burning Palms. It's just uh, there's some fun segments, but I think there's also some offensive stuff in there that just doesn't land today. After that, I think it's Paranormal Activity. Again, good movie. I don't dislike it at all, but it's just like that's just where where I'm putting the where it at in terms of the ranking. Then Scouts Guide. I don't know. I just there's something about it where I just feel like I could just see it on in the background somewhere, and I'll just be like, oh, it's kind of funny.
sure.
It's sure it's cliche, it's whatever, but I don't know. There's some kind of charm to it that I just I kind of find okay. Then I think it's gonna have to be Happy Death Day 2, Happy Death Day, Freaky, and then Drop. Again, I do think that Drop so good. There is a bit of a gap between that and Freaky. Though I do love Freaky and all the both the Happy Death Day movies, but I'm like Drop makes me excited to see like what he does next.
Yeah, that was just, oh man, such a fun theater experience. I think if I had seen Freaky or Happy Death Day in the theater, I would have probably ranked them higher as well because those would have been fun with an audience.
Yeah.
Especially Freaky because that Freaky is arguably his funniest film,
Yeah.
I would say. So that's that's the films. That's not all the films he's worked on though. Obviously, he's written a lot of stuff. So now this is the part where we kind of go onto Letterboxd here. If you're watching this through the visual recording, this is going to be a lot more fun for you. But for people listening, we're going to try our best to kind of make this seamless as well.
Yeah.
We're going to go through his stuff via Letterboxd and kind of look at some of the people he's worked with and try to kind of form a through line for his career and how this has all come about. And this is probably the most interesting part of the show, and this is going to be hopefully the thing we can stand out amongst other director deep dive episodes. So let's pull this up here. So here we're going to sort his writing credits, if I can see. So we're going to go to the stuff he's written, and this is earliest first. So obviously started Another Day in Paradise, directed by Larry Clark. Talked a little bit about that. This $30 is actually something that he made for Boy's Life 3, which is an anthology film. So he directed a short, or wrote a short rather, called $30.
Yeah, it was just kind of. I think the Boys Life 3 is anthology about being a gay man and like these little stories about experiences of gay men like and what they're going about, which makes sense since he's gay, and he would probably have some kind of insight and would want to be a part of that community. And then after that, he did blood no
Blood
blood
and
and
Chocolate.
chocolate and Disturbia. I think came
So
out at the same time.
he wrote Disturbia solo.
Yeah,
Blood and Chocolate he was co-writing. Oh, good, that works.
I
Okay.
I don't think Disturbia is solo though.
We can double check.
Yeah.
But he co-wrote this with Aaron Kruger,
Mhm.
who is a writer on Scream 3
Yeah.
and The Ring and Top Gun Maverick also, which is kind of cool.
Pretty big writer back in the day, especially during the writer strike. I think he was a pretty prominent person
Disturbia
in
solo writer.
Hollywood.
Or no,
No, he's story by.
Story
but,
by
yeah.
is Christopher Landon for Disturbia. He co-wrote Disturbia with Carl Ellsworth, who is a writer on Red Eye, directed by Wes Craven, who made Scream.
That's great.
So there's another connection to Scream right there.
Yeah.
Burning Palms, written by him, directed by him.
If you look at that, you could see that some of the producers have no other credits anywhere. So I'm assuming that those are maybe friends or family friends, or
Yes.
that have helped him just to get this created, so he could put it out there.
Also, interesting thing here. So there's this editor, Gregory Plotkin, who edited Burning Palms, also edited Paranormal Activity 2, 3, and 4, and edited Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. And I think that's the only other... Oh, and Happy Death Day as well, the first one. So this editor has edited some pretty big movies, such as Get Out, A Quiet Place Day 1, Game Night, The Nun 2. Also, he, I believe, directed the movie Hellfest from 2018. So this guy kind of got his career start with Christopher Landon. So that's a very interesting thing as well.
Yeah, and we'll see things like this constantly, where he's working with the same kind of producers, same editor, same. He works with Bear McCreary, I believe.
Bear McCreary, yeah, the composer.
Quite a few of his stuff. So if you look at, I think Scout's Guide might be the first one in which he works with Bear McCreary. Which, if you don't know who that is, he did like the score for Walking Dead. He's actually quite.
No, this is a different composer here.
Oh, is it?
So Matthew.
Oh, that's right.
Did the music for Scout's Guide.
As you can see,
if
you go back, this composer has worked on Kick-Ass 2 and Truth or Dare, and those movies were directed by Jeff Ludlow. If you click on those,
Jeff Ludlow.
And
Wadlow.
He, if you look at his producing and writing, the movie, the writers on that movie and the producers on those movies also, I think, did Drop.
Yes.
So we could see a lot of connections already with like kind of this interweaving of using certain people on certain movies that have worked on other movies that are kind of all related to each other.
People know each other.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you believe it? But yes, Bear McCreary, I think it might have been Happy Death Day then.
Let's see.
Yes. Bear McCreary, music for Walking Dead, as you said, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Godzilla King of the Monsters, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, if you saw that. Also Cloverfield Paradox. But
he has a lot of films under him.
Yeah, a lot. Drop is his latest as well. But yeah, I did Happy Death Day, Freaky, Happy Death Day 2, Christopher Landon, as well as these Blumhouse films, Imaginary, Fantasy Island, Hellfest as well. So another composer that, a lot of these people know.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gregory Plotkin could have met this guy through Christopher Landon or vice versa.
Yeah, and as you can see, he did right after Burning Palms, he did Paranormal Activity 2, 3, and 4, just kind of back to back to back.
Yep.
Before finally directing marked ones, which kind of like opened the door for him to do Scout's Guide. And as you can see, he also co-wrote Viral. And if you look at the directors for Viral, they were the directors on the first Paranormal Activity 2 and 3, I believe.
I
Or
think
3
it's
and 4.
3 and 4. Yeah.
And I could only assume that when they wanted to do that movie, they brought on Christopher Landon to help him write it as well. So that's what I always love about like kind of these small indie style filmmakers, is that they're always working with a group of people that they all know, and they share people, and everybody's working on everybody's stuff.
Yeah, and Christopher Landon also co-wrote on Hard Eyes,
Mm-hmm.
which is a new film from this year,
Which I
which
haven't
is
seen yet.
also from. I thought it was pretty good, but this is also from Spyglass, which is the Scream
Mm-hmm.
studio. Um, not really in the best. Not really seen in the best light right now,
Yeah.
but yeah, and he also co-wrote on this Paranormal Activity film from 2021 called Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin.
William Eubanks, who did A Land of Bad and
Underwater.
Underwater, I think is actually kind of a fun little
Underwater's pretty good.
movie. Um, Interesting that they got that guy to direct the movies, but I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I can't say much about it. But yeah, we get to see that Christopher Landon is definitely good at making movies for a low budget, and I think he does that by utilizing high concept ideas, kind of taking two different concepts and meshing them together to make something its own, and by utilizing the same editors or composers, producers. There's this shorthand where where you almost don't need to communicate as detailed as you usually would with any new person you're working with, because they already know what your style is about. They already know uh, what you're gonna bring to the table. So it makes it fast, cheap, and easy to make a movie when you have all these combined elements put together. And I think that's why Jason Blum, as we can see, has produced
So many.
damn near all of his movies except for Burning Palms, and I think Scout's Guide.
Yeah, but like everything else.
Yeah, and that's what Jason Blum is known for, is making very, very cheap horror movies that bring in a lot of money back.
And I think Christopher Landon is honestly like a pretty powerful asset for those films.
Yeah,
Like that is, I think, his wheelhouse is stuff that Blumhouse makes. That is, I guess, some of the better stuff.
yeah. So Blumhouse, there was a moment in their career where they were pumping out some top tier kind of stuff. Isn't Get Out Blumhouse?
Get Out, Whiplash.
Yeah, Whiplash. Like they were pumping out some good, cheap horror films, but they weren't just cheap for the sake of being cheap. They were cheap, but also very effective, and they were really showcasing that they could bring these ideas and these subject matters to the forefront without without big studio backing. And I mean, Blumhouse at this point kind of does have that big studio backing with Universal, because Universal sees that, you know, they produce, they can produce some movies, whether or not you love them or hate them, they'll bring back money, and Christopher Landon's really good at that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know a lot of people who are really into film, um, kind of look down upon like the big studios, and like the fact that movies have to make money for them to for studios to want to release them, and the ideas of uh, budgeting is like a big thing in making movies that people just don't want to talk about when it comes to making creative films and making films that they want to put out there. But I think to be a good filmmaker, you need to understand the creative aspect of filmmaking as well as, if not as equally,
Just as much.
just as much, the financial side of making a film. And I think Christopher Landon is so good at pitching an idea that equally showcases how he can make a film on a cheaper scale. And that's why his films are so successful, and that's why he continues to make films. I think it's kind of interesting also that he's not hyped up by the studios as much. They do kind of hype him up in the sense of being like from the director of Happy Death Day, but they don't like make him like a household name kind of thing. At least not yet.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see that one day. Um, I I will continue to see anything he makes. I think it's honestly this being our first episode, and now he kind of has a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
His films. Um, this was a blast,
Yeah.
honestly. Like I think it's such a random idea we had to do this one. I kind of came up with it because we were talking about like, what's the director we could do that's kind of relevant that like we could dive into, and I was like, well, Drop's coming out. What if we did
Yeah,
Christopher Landon?
when you said Christopher Landon, it was just like a light bulb moment. I was like, that's actually so perfect because nobody talks about him. Like they don't drop his name anywhere. They're just like, oh, the director of Happy Death Day, whatever. But when you can actually like look at directors' filmography like under the microscope, um, you could definitely like I think the idea of the auteur theory really comes prominent because you get to see like where they lay their stamps, where they mark their stamps, and where they get to shine through making these films. For instance, in Scout's Guide, the very first scene, you have that one guy from Workaholics that gets like getting by the
It's in that
zombie.
lab.
And they use that same setting, that same lab setting in
Happy Death Day to You.
Happy Death Day to You, and you get to see these little things where the director will uh, reintroduce certain aspects or things or subject matters into their later movies that you just would not have seen if you just kind of watch these movies without any idea or knowledge or you're not really looking into
If you're
it.
looking at the movie as its own entity
Yeah.
instead of something that was created by an individual, or I guess, well, it's always a team effort, but there's kind of a mind behind it.
Yeah.
And you can see that with his films, even though they are populist, pitchable, kind of casual horror comedies or thriller comedies that you would watch, at a sleepover, like I said. But if you put them all together and you look into the context of everyone that contributed, you can find how there's this web of connectivity between all of them and things that they didn't even make, but you can see the influence, you can see how these people know each other, and so of course this person would get to make this because they know this guy and all these different things. So I hope that you guys learned a little bit of insight on Christopher Landon as a filmmaker, some of the people that he works closely with. I hope that you are inspired to check out his films or to look at other directors for this same through this same lens,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we aim to do here. This is not our only segment, but this is something we thought would be fun to start with. Our next episode is going to be something a little different,
Yeah.
but still in the same ballpark. You want to tease that at all?
Uh, should we tease it?
Well, let's just say our next episode's it's a little more experimental.
Yeah.
In terms of like how we're approaching. We're still doing filmmakers.
Yeah.
But we're approaching it through something that we've like come to enjoy doing casually as an experiment, and so we're going to share that with all of you, and we hope that you'll stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, is there anything else you would like to add about Christopher Landon or any of these movies?
Um, no, I do think that you guys should check out his stuff because his stuff is actually really good, especially the ones that we've liked a lot more than some of his other stuff. But yeah, for this view finding episode, I think we found the view.
I don't know if we're gonna say that every time. That's
No.
kind of corny.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that was really cool. We're I think we should try for other episodes for this segment to talk about directors that some of you guys probably aren't as aware. Like, I don't think we'll go into many deep dives on directors that everybody knows about already, like Quentin Tarantino. What else are we gonna add to that kind of director?
Yeah, I mean we can, and
We
there
can.
is certain directors that are that are household names or that are known, but maybe we feel are misunderstood,
Yeah.
or we feel there's a little more to them, or there is maybe just some kind of explanation over their high and low points that we can kind of do some research, provide some insight on. Um, I hope that this can kind of serve as a tool for people when they're looking forward to a film that just came out or they want to learn more about a movie that they like. We can put that into context for the whole filmography of the director, and I think that hopefully people who watched Drop recently
Yeah.
can come to this episode and learn a little more about how Drop came to be as Christopher Landon's latest film, and how it stands out and how it's similar.
Yeah.
So that's really our goal, is just to find the view, find the perspective of which this filmmaker is best viewed through, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are,
Yeah.
and just have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, and if you're watching this or listening to this on somewhere where you could comment, like, I don't know, Instagram or whatever, give us recommendations on people you want to learn about or movies that you like that you don't know anything about the filmmakers, and we'll look into it.
Well, we will also have social links. We'll have an Instagram, an X account. Unfortunately, I'll probably make a Blue Sky. I haven't done that yet for the podcast. But also an email, so you guys can email us if you wish. Give us a suggestion for something you would like to see us do. Follow me on TikTok at Peyton_pictures. I make videos just about every day on there. Just random thoughts and movie reviews and such. Shorter form stuff. Adryon's not really.
I have a TikTok, but I don't post anything on there, so follow him. But maybe we'll create a TikTok just for this podcast where we'll put stuff on. We'll see.
Put
We'll see
some
what
clips
happens.
out. Make an announcement post or something. Also, follow me on Letterboxd as well as Adryon. That's something we're very active on, both of us. My Letterboxd is Peyton JB. His Letterboxd is
think it's
7,
just,
the word
the
7,
word 7.
the word 7, and then the number 7.
Yeah.
7.
Or you could just look up my name, and I'm sure you'll find it's Adryon. It's not spelled the usual
It's
way.
It's in the
You'll
links.
figure
it's
it
in
out.
the title.
You'll find
it's
it.
in the links.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. Yeah.
This was fun. And I also want to say, this shit took us like a year. Like, trying to conceptualize this podcast and figure out, okay, what are we going to call it? What are we going to do? What's going to make us different? Like, we're still working on it. But it's like, I'm just glad it's not bullshit. Like, this is like a real recording that we did. And hopefully we got it right. We're obviously gonna up our game.
Yeah,
over time.
We'll get better and better. Kind of cut out some of the fat. Like, this being our first episode, I'm sure there's some ramblings in there that kind of just go nowhere. But we'll stick around. We'll get interesting.
What? No, we are interesting.
We are interesting.
The thing that I'm saying is the production value. I mean, we're trying to figure out how best to kind of format this and record it. And I think by far the way that this looks right now, I mean, y'all should have seen the rehearsals we've done.
Oh my god.
Y'all should have seen how it looked before. So many things getting in the way. So many things we had to wait for. We both live together in a house with 2 other guys. It can be kind of chaotic, and we all work and stuff. So I'm just glad we were able to finally sit down and get this done, and we can get the ball rolling. So I'm just saying, bear with us. If anyone has any, genuinely, if anyone has any advice on on podcasting
Yeah.
something we can do to improve the show, we're so open to like any feedback in that regard. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this first episode of the Apple Box Chronicles for our segment View Findings on Christopher Landon. I've been Peyton Buetow.
And I'm Adrian Thomas, and this is Chucky, and this is Count Orlock, and we'll see you next time.
That's gonna sound crazy to people just listening. Like, what do you mean? There's fucking
That's true.
Chucky.
Yeah, for people that are listening and not hearing, we have Chucky sitting next to us, kind of standing next to us, and we have Orlock right behind us. But yeah, thanks for joining us.
We will see you next time on the Apple Box. Goodbye.